Welcome to another episode of Kraken's Garage. I'm your host, Eric. Today we're going to talk about how to maintain the chain, clean, lubricate, and adjust the chain on your Benelli TNT 135. I've had several people ask me how to do that and do a quick how-to video. That's what we're going to accomplish today. If you did notice, it's October, my favorite time of the year. Halloween's my favorite holiday. I busted out my pumpkin helmet. I got a pumpkin to carve for a prop in future episodes coming up in Kraken's Garage. We're gonna have a great time this month, in the month of Rocktober. So let's get to it. There's a couple of items we need to perform this task. 99 times out of 100, I just use plain old kerosene. It's cheap as beans. You can buy it by the gallon at your local gas station and just put it in a spray bottle. It'll basically clean all the grunge and grime right off of your chain. It's an old school way of doing it. People have been doing it for 100 years. You can buy these chain cleaners like this Motorex one. Kind of expensive for what you get. The kerosene does just as well. If you want to keep the price tab down, just go with the kerosene. I have a couple of old school, this PJ1 Chain Lube I've had forever. I also have some Motorex Chain Lube as well. And I also have some Repsol. Don't ask me how I got so many over the years, but there it is. So I have 3 to choose from. Basically, what we're going to use also is a Grunge Brush, and you can buy these at any motorcycle shop. I'll link down below to ones that are available, as well as these products, and they're available should you need to buy them, if I can find them on Amazon. Since this is not an O-ring chain, you can actually just take a wire brush to it if you don't have Grunge Brush. Now, don't use a wire brush on an O-ring chain. Only on these basic non-O-ring sealed chains can you use something like this, so bear that in mind. Right here is a sticker on your bike that tells you how much chain slack you should have in your bike. Basically, this says 28 to 35 millimeters. So let's go 35 millimeters. That's about that far on a ruler, and see how much movement we have. We have way more than 35 millimeters movement, so definitely in need of an adjustment. I also want to point out, see the lateral move as well? That comes from a cheap chain. And kind of surprised 500 miles into it, but I knew it was a cheap chain going into it when I bought the bike. So we're gonna have to replace this sooner rather than later. But for the time being, if she's good, let's get her cleaned up and tightened up, and we'll go from there. Okay, what we're gonna do is take our kerosene and we're gonna spray it on liberally. This is gonna make a mess. And you'll keep spraying it all the way around till you see it come up wet, and there we go. Made a full circle there. Don't worry about what's pooling up down here. We're gonna get to that in the meantime. So let's take our Grunge Brush. I'm gonna stick it up underneath and do a couple of laps with it. What we're hoping to do is get all the grunge and grime off of the chain from 3 sides of it. Now, to get the top side of the chain, just take your brush and hold it the opposite direction and go around again. Pull it off. Let's hit it with another round of kerosene to knock all that grime off. You can really see it starting to drip off in large quantities and pool up down on the workbench. Now, you don't need to do this on a workbench. I'm just doing this for filming purposes. If you take a look down below, you can see where it's literally dripping off the grime from the chain. Now, since this is not an O-ring chain, you can use a wire brush on it as well and just scrub the hell out of it. You're not going to hurt the chain one bit. That works as well. Now, after we've done that, you're going to take a clean rag and run it through and wipe off any kerosene and grime that has come loose. Looking pretty good. Hit it with the kerosene one more time. Let's wipe her off again. Still lots of grime coming off of that. Make sure you have plenty of clean rags. It's a messy job. Wipe off your wheel that gets covered in the cleaner as well. Let's wipe that chain down just one more time. Now you may want to take the chain off and soak it. Some people do. I normally don't, but for some people they really like getting all of it, and that's a much better way to clean a chain, but it's a lot more work to me, so no, I don't do it that way. Now since that kerosene has gotten all over the sprocket, we're gonna rotate the sprocket. I should mention, make sure, I've seen some idiots do this with their bike running. Wow, there's no faster way to chew up your fingers and bad things to happen than trying to work on your bike with it running. So don't do that, please. Okay. You also want to, at this time, check your sprocket for wear and tear. I'll throw up some examples of how, if you hard excel often, you'll get a shark's tooth effect happening on the sprocket. If you decel a lot or downshift a lot, you'll get an effect on that as well. Now I buy these small bottles of chain lube because they're easy to carry on a bike. Under normal riding circumstances, you should lube your chain every 300 to 500 miles. If I'm out on a long journey, you got to carry it with you so you can do it on the road. And there's several ways to do that, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But in the meantime, let's get this chain lubed. So what we're going to do is squirt it, sticking our hose so we catch pretty much 3 sides of the chain. And we're going to continue around till we see it come up wet where we've already lubed it. There's your master link if you want to pop it off. It's just a clip to remove the chain completely. Next, we're going to lube it from the back side of the chain. And that makes sure the links in the back side get some love as well. Take a fairly clean rag and then wipe her down one more time to get any excess lubricant off. Now most of these lubricants have some sort of congealing agent to it. A lot of them use paraffin wax, and what you have to do is don't ride your bike for like a half hour after you've done this routine. It gives it time for that lubricant to gel up. Otherwise it's going to fling right off, get all over your wheel, your fenders, your gear, your clothes, whatever. Give it time to congeal. Okay, to adjust the chain, first thing we need to do is break loose this axle bolt. I'm using a bar here to get some leverage on it. If you don't have one of these, just use your normal 19-inch socket or ratchet and put a bar on it or something of that nature to gain some leverage on it. And break her free. It's a pinch fitting bolt. You don't need to remove it all the way, just enough so that it will slide back and forth. That's looking pretty good. Next, on the back of each axle, after we've loosened the axle bolt, is a 13mm dual bolt. First one is just to lock it in place, so we're going to loosen that up. And back it off, and do the same for the other side. I'm just going to take it off to show more of what we're doing here. Now what we're going to do is screw these in, and in doing so, we'll pull the axle back. The trick is you got to do both sides about the same time. So I'm going to snug them up nice and tight on both sides. 2, 3, 4, 5. Do 5 quarter turns on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll check the chain. That's too tight. We'll need to back it off. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's check our chain. All right, I'll show you the chain when we get to the other side. She's adjusted about right, so what we're gonna do is use our 13mm wrench and snug down the lock bolts. I'll put the torque settings for all of this up in the window. Okay, you'll most likely need 2 13mm wrenches to really snug these up. That's pretty good. Go back to our 19 millimeter socket on our breaker bar. Well, let's get her semi-tightened up first. And that's pretty good right there. Okay, let's check our chain. Remember, our slack is somewhere between 28 and 35 millimeters. So there's roughly 28 millimeters. And we're right in spec. That's excellent. Good stuff. So the chain is adjusted, it's lubed, it's been cleaned, scrubbed, and lubed. You are good to go on this part of the service. This should be something you should do on a regular basis, every 500 to 700 miles, in that range. So that brings us to the conclusion of this episode. Hopefully that helps you out on maintaining your motorcycle. In this case, the Benelli TNT 135. That's part of your routine maintenance that should be done every 500 miles. Carry a can of oil lube with you if you go on longer trips so you can lube your chain on the fly. When you're having to lube out on the road, the easiest way I find is to put it on its side stand, lube a section of chain, move the bike back 2 feet, lube the next section, move the bike back 2 feet. Always move it backwards, because when you move it forwards, you run the risk of kicking the kickstand up and the bike toppling over while you're trying to lube your bike. So keep that in mind for a handy tip when you're on the road. They do make smaller bottles in a travel size just for that reason, so keep that in mind. I suspect this chain won't last very long. As I said, it's on the lower end of the spectrum, so probably 2,000 miles or so on it. We'll check the condition. If it's bad, I'm gonna put a O-ring chain on it, and we'll do a video on that at that time. But next up on Kraken's Garage is an oil change on how to do that properly on this bike. And I'll include what oils I use, the filters, where I purchase those items, and what the torque settings are for everything that you do on the bike. I'll save you the trouble of going through the manual, and I'll just post them up on the screen. Hopefully that helps somebody else out there. Oh my gosh, it's Halloween time of the year, and I've got ghosts in my garage. You know the deal on the garage. If you like this video, give it a tentacles up. If you don't like it, give it a tentacle down. If you want to see more, use your tentacle and hit that subscribe button down in the corner. And I'll see you in the next one. And remember, folks, go riding when you can, because it's good for ya.